Hello and welcome to IB Times UK. Central African Republic's interim president Catherine Samba-Panza has announced the postponement of presidential election due to renewed violence that left dozens of people dead in the capital Bangui. We spoke with James Schneider, senior correspondent at the New Africa magazine, on the causes of the conflict amid warnings that the country might descend into civil war due to the prolonged tit-for-tat violence carried out by militant groups.
The president who was overthrown by the rebels in 2013, Francois Bozize, himself had come to power through a rebel movement. And then pretty much throughout his presidencies, throughout the 2000s, he faced different rebel movements. And one particular one that's called the Central African Bush War went from 2004 to 2007. And the major group in that was led by this man, Michel Djotodia, who was a former border agent with the on the Sudanese border. He's up from the northeast of the country. He eventually ended up being the one who was the president who overthrew Bozize. And this set of grievances never really went away. And then over the course of 2012, these rebel movements started to come together into something called Seleka, which means alliance in Sango, which is the lingua franca of Central African Republic. They were in the east of the country, especially in the northeast of the country, and they started coming down towards the southwest, and that's where Bangui, the capital, is, and started coming down and taking towns and exerting pressure. There was a peace negotiation at the very end of 2012, which was mediated by the president of Benin, and it took place in Gabon. But unfortunately, this didn't hold, and after just a couple of months, the Seleka started thinking that Bozize was not abiding by what he had set out.
Since the overthrow of former President Francois Bozize in 2013, Muslim Seleka and Christian anti-Balaka militias have engaged in violence that has resulted in thousands of deaths and hundreds of thousands of displaced people.
So the conflict didn't start as a religious conflict. If you see the rhetoric that Seleka, the rebels, were putting forward, they were not seen as being this Muslim rebel force. They were seen as being a northern rebel force because that's how the coding had worked in Central African Republic before, between north and south. And so a lot of the different elements within the Seleka rebel alliance went off and basically freelanced. They started attacking the population, looting areas, killing people. And their violence, it took on not an explicit, but it did take on a religious or an ethnic dimension because they tended to not attack the Fulani Muslims who are in the west of the country and around Bangui. Then, in response to these attacks, especially in the northwest of the country, the non-Muslim population, especially the Mbaya ethnic group, started to rise up and organize self-defense organization. But as the dynamics of the conflict developed, it then took on different ethnic and religious elements, and then it has increasingly become that, even though neither of the animating forces of either side are religion. It's not as if the Seleka are basing their politics in any way on Islam, or anti-Balaka are using Christian symbolism or religious language. But as the society has fractured and people have interpreted it through a religious lens, it now has this very, very fixed and quite firm, but hopefully not eternal, religious ethnic component.
In January 2014, the then President Michael Djotodia was forced to resign as he was accused of being unable to hold the unrest. He was replaced by Catherine Samba-Panza, deemed as politically neutral. Her election, however, did not halt the violence, and civilians are routinely killed by the two factions. In the latest episode of violence, some 42 people were killed in Bangui in retaliation to the killing of a Muslim motorcycle taxi driver earlier in September.
Catherine Samba-Panza, the interim president, has had to fly back from the UN, cancel the elections and try to get a hold of the situation now. I've been told that today things are very quiet and very tense in Bangui, so we're not going to get elections anytime soon. The rush to elections was a mistake anyway. It was very difficult to. There should have been, in my opinion, an attempt to raise up new leadership, perhaps starting at local and municipal level and trying to embed peace building and allow the transitional process at national level to carry on for some time. Also, the problem with when you're rushing to election, when you've got such a bad political class really and so many different elements that are trying to get impunity for their military actions through a political process, if you rush towards it, then the idea, well, we'll just get them in, we'll sacrifice justice for this, starts to become quite strong.